What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 24 of the Whatnauts Review Show, where each week we have a new story to talk about, and it could be a comic book, it can be a movie, a TV show, who knows. We read it, we watch it, we do what we gotta do, we come back here and talk about it. My name is Kyle Springer, and joining me, returning after 2 weeks, gone, Melissa Wilkinson. How are you?
I'm good, Kyle. Dude, we're reunited and it feels so good, just like they always sang about.
Yes, exactly. You've been moving into a new apartment, which I can kind of see behind you right now. You have a new light, a new bookshelf, or it might not be a new bookshelf, but it's a bookshelf I haven't seen, so.
Yeah. You've had a whole new view on everything since
Yes.
I've rearranged where all my furniture goes.
Exactly. So how is the move-in been?
It's been okay. I really like my new place. I'm super close to work. I love the actual apartment and the grounds the apartment is on. I actually have a view
That's
now.
fantastic. Oh, nice.
It's just getting settled into a new place and finding what box I put all my stuff in. It's a process, and I'm like 80% done, and I want to get the rest done as soon as possible so that then I don't have to worry about it anymore. I can actually relax in my little book nook that I'm building.
The book nook.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to make sure all the boxes were labeled right. Like you open up one that says DVDs, and you have to hope it's not the Tupperware. It's like, God damn it! What, how did that happen? Who did this?
DVDs were what I unpacked first. They were like the least necessary thing, but I'm like, well, I know what to do with them.
I have to display my collection.
I just take them out of the box and put them on the shelf, and that's one very easy thing that I can complete.
Yeah. That's awesome. Fantastic. Well, we have been holding the fort down, me and Jess. It's been fantastic. She would have loved to be on more episodes, but she just got a new job.
Awesome! Yes!
Yes. So if I was going to say, if you caught the episode of the Captain's Log where she mentioned that, but unfortunately that episode never actually came out. But yeah, she has mentioned it since then, I think. But yeah, I'm happy for her that she got a new job. She's still working on questionable commentary. I'm working on some music for that. So things are moving along, and fingers crossed, everything will be done and ready to start coming out at the end of the month.
Good.
So yeah, hopefully things work out with that. Because I'm excited. I'm really excited. Yeah, and then I've been playing Spider-Man.
Yes.
Which
You've been very excited about this for a long time.
I have been very excited. You mentioned that you got to see your brother play some of it. I was talking about it a little bit with Eric on the Captain's Log. And it's really fun. It's so good. I love it.
Good.
Yeah, I think the game says I'm like 70% done with the game.
Wow.
But I don't know if that's like 70% of the story mode or like the game in its entirety. So I have yet to figure that out. But I'm taking my time with it, getting all of the collectibles and stuff like that. So it's fun. It's good.
Good.
But we are here to talk about a couple of movies this week. 2 anime movies. I guess you could call them animated. I guess that's just semantics. But it's anime, but it's kind of a computer graphic style. The studio, one of the studios that made this, Polygon Pictures, excuse me, they've done a couple other shows for Netflix, and it's in that same style.
Okay.
They did Knights of Sidonia and Ajin was the other one, and actually we have an old episode of the Whatnauts podcast covering Ajin, so that's pretty cool if you guys want to go dig that up. But yeah, we are here to talk about Godzilla.
Yes.
1 and 2. Not to be confused with the original Godzillas 1 and 2, if there are two like sequel things. I'm not a huge Godzilla fan, so I haven't seen the originals. But I put this on the list because I like Godzilla.
Yeah.
I like the aesthetic of like the Japanese monster kaiju films. Like those are really cool to me. But I've never really dived into anything Godzilla. So I don't know too much, but this seemed different to me.
Yeah.
This is like a sci-fi futuristic take on Godzilla, which is like not what I expect when I think of Godzilla. So I was like, maybe I'll put this on there. And there's 2 of these movies, so it's a good chunk. I think there's gonna be at least a 3rd one.
Yeah.
And besides that, I don't know. It's gonna be a wild ride. But you were the one that picked it.
Yes.
So is that kind of a similar reason to why you picked it?
When I was a kid, I loved the American Godzilla movie, and it's something I still have a soft spot for.
1998-ish?
Yeah, starring Matthew Broderick, Jean Reno, and 2 of the voice actors from The Simpsons. Yes.
I remember I had Godzilla Band-Aids from that movie. That's the only thing I remember about that movie.
That's good merchandise.
Yeah.
I loved that movie when I was a kid, and I rewatched it in the last couple years, and I still have such a soft spot for it, but I also realized what in the world in this appealed to an 8-year-old girl. Like, I don't understand why I like it, but I still like it.
It's funny.
And I thought it was about time that I see more authentic Japanese Godzilla.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hesitate to call this authentic Japanese Godzilla, but
yeah, it's not Godzilla the way I thought it might be, but it is at least from Japan, and
yes,
I felt like I owed the big guy that much to like watch a production of him from his own home country.
Yeah. So yeah, if you guys are wondering, this is on Netflix. I believe it's a Netflix original stuff. Netflix original series of movies. It says Netflix original series on the thing, but it's really just 2 movies so far. But yeah, so you guys can find it on Netflix. Just type in Godzilla and they will pop up. It's interesting. So let's break the synopsis down.
Yeah.
We mentioned it's kind of a sci-fi take. It starts off fairly normally. It's very obvious they live in a world that's a little bit more technologically advanced than we are. But yeah, it's kind of the thing where just one day monsters show up. They start wreaking havoc on the world. And then eventually here comes big bad Godzilla. And he is like the king of kaiju, and he basically destroys all of humanity. He's that destructive that he can basically take over the entire world. And so, kind of as that's happening, 2 humanoid alien species come down to Earth, and we're like, hey, we're humans too. We're going to help you defeat Godzilla.
Yeah.
And that's the plan, but it doesn't work. And so in like a last ditch effort to survive, they go out in space. And they're like, hey, if we go out in space and then come back down to Earth, a lot of time will have passed, and then maybe Godzilla will be gone, and we can take Earth back. So that's the plan, and that's kind of the setup, which seems like it would be the plot of like the entire thing, but like that is the setup for how this thing starts, which is crazy.
Yeah,
this is not at all what I expected when the aliens when the aliens showed up. What went through your mind?
Oh man, I think I didn't even put it together until the second movie that there were aliens among us. I thought those guys just had weird eyebrows. I didn't know they were not of Earth.
It's yeah, like it's one of those things where they just mention, oh, by the way, aliens came to Earth on 2 separate locations, and it's 2 different species, but they're humanoid. They're basically, they look and think and act like humans. So we just accepted them into society.
Yeah, like there's the guys with the
okay.
Yeah, there's the guys with the weird eyebrows, but then there's that blonde guy who I was like, I guess I missed it. Like, I watched the first movie with subtitles on in the original Japanese, and it, like, I think I must have, like, just glanced away from the screen whenever that happened, because when it comes up in the second movie, I'm like, you've been an alien this whole time? You look like just a guy.
Who directed this? Is it M. Night Shyamalan? What the hell? No, yeah, it's, so, I guess the distinction between the 2 alien species is that one is a lot more religious, and they have this god that kind of tells them cryptic messages from time to time on this, like, iPad, like, device, and it's, well, I guess it's cryptic messages. They call it more of an oracle. And yeah, so like they're this more kind of religious sect. I think it's it's more so that like their science went in a completely like different direction than everyone else. It's not like a practical science for the advancement of humans. It's just like we put all of our thought and work into this god that can predict the future. And then the other species is the more like technologically advanced, like, hey, we know machines, we can build weapons that work, we can they're more the industrial, like things we built with our own 2 hands.
Yeah.
And then there's good old human beings that have no special powers. But yeah, it's a wild start to this version of Godzilla. Crazy stuff. Do you have anything else you want to add to the synopsis, or stuff like that before we move on?
No, I think that's good. That's the basics that you need to know about this thing, is that humanity goes into space for what they think is like 20 years. And when they get back to Earth because of time dilation, real interstellar type of stuff, it's been 20,000 years.
Yeah, well, it's that thing with, like, you go up into space, like, straight up and come back down. More time on Earth has passed than it has for you. So for them, it's only been, like, 22 years, but for Earth, it's been, like, 20,000. So when they come back to Earth, it's completely different. Wild stuff. What did you think? Like, now that you've seen these 2 movies, what is your general impressions?
I liked them. I was always interested to keep watching them and see what was going to happen next. And I think it was a very interesting take on Godzilla. I would have liked to have seen something more traditionally kaiju against civilians.
Yeah. Yeah, that's... I mean, I like the different take. I like that they're exploring it. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of fun watching this. I think visually, the film is a lot of fun to look at and just explore. I think the one kind of major critique that I have is I didn't feel like it needed to be Godzilla.
Exactly. Yeah,
this could have been just any monster, any alien species, just whatever. It didn't have to be Godzilla. And I don't know. Again, like, I haven't really seen very many other Godzilla stuff, so I don't know what the usual themes are, or what the messages are behind that. And so I don't know how well exactly this movie plays with those themes in particular, but I always got the impression that Godzilla represented like a certain not aspect of humanity. Oh, whoops, we lost you for a sec there. Your camera switched.
Where did it go?
It got covered up by the stuff. I can still hear you, and I can still see you.
That's
it's
crazy.
Just the wrong camera right now.
Why did it switch to my other camera?
Now it turned your camera off.
Okay.
There we go. Now we're back.
Weird.
Who knows? But yeah, so I don't know exactly how well this movie plays with those traditional Godzilla themes. I guess I guess I've always felt like Godzilla kind of represented a certain like viewpoint or way to see the world, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? This let's go ahead and kind of dive into spoiler territory stuff.
Yeah.
So if you have not watched these yet, and what we have been talking about has interested you, go check them out. They're on Netflix. Godzilla 1 and 2. They are anime films with more of a sci-fi twist. But we're about to dive into spoilers. I do have real quick housekeeping before we dive into that. Let me mention these things real fast. We have all our RSS feed stuff fixed, so you can now go subscribe to the review show, the Captain's Log, and the Reactor Core all separately. So go do those and resubscribe if you need to. But we could really, really, really use your help now that we have all those feeds fixed to get some new iTunes reviews. That's kind of how iTunes works. We're a lot more visible. The more reviews we have, the more current those reviews are. And with these new feeds, we now have a big fat 0 amount of reviews. So we could use your guys' help. And last but not least, if you guys could follow us on Twitch and YouTube. You guys can watch these live streams on our website at thewhatnauts.com/live streams, but that's really just our Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/thewhatnauts. So go give us a follow there, and if you guys look up the Whatnauts podcast on YouTube, you can find our channel there. There you go. That's your spoiler warning, housekeeping stuff. Basically, what I was about to say before that was this idea that I think Godzilla kind of represents a like a certain way to view the world or view humanity, right? Back in World War II, when we dropped the atomic bombs, both like the Western world and the Eastern world viewed it very differently in terms of like how we reacted in the stories and fiction that came out of that. Here in America, you start to see superheroes, people who gain all sorts of incredible powers due to radiation and like nuclear waste and stuff like that. Whereas in Japan, it's these giant monsters that are attacking and destroying their cities. And so it kind of represents this like achievement of man that is kind of destroying the world, but it's one that we can't control. Really, it's become this monster. And I think they briefly start to touch on that in the second film here, but it doesn't sound like it's what we were expecting.
Yeah, and what you're talking about with the, we asked if we could, we never asked if we should, like scientific folly of man sort of theme is what the American Godzilla works with. That's all about, it's less Japan-centric, so instead it's like America doing, or I guess a lot of different countries, because you've got Jean Reno involved from France, just various bomb testings on islands where they like mutated a Komodo dragon to become the size of Godzilla. That's the backstory in the American version. So I wonder if maybe they just looked at this and they're like, well, we've done it. We've done like the radiation and like scientific testing gone beyond the capability of man themes so much. Why don't we put those on the shelf for right now? Why don't we tell a bit more of a clean and simple sci-fi story that isn't so directly tied to that piece of history? Maybe they just wanted to give it a break for a little while. I don't know. Because I feel like this movie was missing a lot of the usual Godzilla things, a lot of things that like I would have liked to have seen, but also, if I want to see them, I know there's probably 24 other movies I can go to that will have them. And I do kind of like that this movie did go for something so completely different from the genre.
Yeah.
Like, well, at least it's not repetitive.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, it's just I think ultimately it does start to dive into that because there's the conflict between the guy who ends up kind of being the main character, and Captain, what was it? I forget his name. His name is like Haro or something like that, and then I don't remember his last name. Who knows?
Yeah, Haro was the main guy.
Yes, and he kind of has a conflict at one point with one of the alien species, and I don't know how to pronounce their name as usual because I'm terrible with names. And I in my mind I saw, like, I was reading the subtitles and I saw the word and it was like, that is too complicated to read right now, especially at the pace that I need to actually read this to figure out what's happening. So I knew it started with a B and it looked like Bushido. So I'm calling them the Bushido in my mind, even though that's totally not it.
Yeah.
But they had a moment in the second film where they kind of revealed that that species views Godzilla as the pinnacle of man's achievement. And so they are, I forget if he said they're wanting to improve on that with Mecha Godzilla, or something. But yeah, there is this idea that it is because of man's achievements in science, in technology, it brought on these monsters. And so it is a direct result of your achievements that this happened. So kind of therefore Godzilla is man's greatest achievement. And that was an interesting thing. They don't really dive into it much, at least in these two films, but they do touch on that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of the discourses I was hoping or expecting them to have a little bit more.
Yeah. Like, yes, we created a monster, but we created something. Look at how big it is. Look at our big boy that all of us made together.
A big, beautiful boy. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we kind of mentioned our general thoughts. Let's start diving into the characters and some.
Okay.
What did you think of the main character?
I liked how he seemed to be just a pretty regular guy. Like, he seemed fairly high-ranking in whatever kind of military organization they had going, but he wasn't like a hotshot. He wasn't like a rising star. He seemed to be competent and respected, but not super anyone special. And I like that he got where he is just because he cares about everything so much, and he like makes it known, and he's really got this personal goal to try and get back to Earth. And then I don't know if this is also something you got, but in the very beginning, there's that little flashback to him as like a little kid, and he's being taken away from his parents, and he's being taken away from Earth. He's just being thrown on a spaceship that's leaving, and he spends his life out in this miserable dystopian space trying to get back to Earth. And I'm like, that's how the movie Titan AE starts.
I mean, it's like a generic sci-fi. The world is ending. We must go to space.
Yep.
You know? So I looked up his name. His name is Captain Haru Sakaki, I believe. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So I liked him. I think he's kind of in the middle of everything. Is a good way to describe him, and he's being pulled in multiple different directions. He has the like, hey, I'm just a normal, like, well, he has the like revenge story for him. Like, this is my Earth. I was born here. This monster came and destroyed it. I want to now defeat the monster and take Earth back. And so that's his ultimate goal. But then, there's kind of the philosophical debate of like, hey, there's the and I saw this on the Wikipedia too. There's the religious aliens who are known as the Exif, and they're kind of hinting at you have this greater purpose. Like there is this kind of religious aspect to things. You might end up being the savior, so to speak. So there is a more reverent side of things. Because if I'm not mistaken, there's like Godzilla TV shows where Godzilla is more like we're your friend, like, hey Godzilla, thanks for saving us. Like,
yes.
Gee whiz, Godzilla, I didn't know you'd show up today.
Like, Godzilla's almost like that old Incredible Hulk TV show, where like he's this weird green wandering monster, but sometimes he helps you.
No, but more of the Godzilla is a protector role, because it's this big monster thing that they don't necessarily understand, and it will destroy you. Maybe if we praise it and we try to befriend it, like, it will be our ally, which is kind of, I mean, after that, look at Japan now. Their industry is technology.
Yeah.
Like, more so than here in America, which is why you then have stories. I'm a big sci-fi fan, so it's like, which is why you then see stories like Ghost in the Shell, which is a uniquely Japanese story based off of their technological boom. Like, that can only happen because that's what happened in Japan, which is why the American movie didn't work. But yeah, so, like, I mean, there's multiple aspects to Godzilla, and he's kind of in the middle. Am I the savior? Am I this destructive force who's gonna destroy Godzilla? Am I do I need to view Godzilla as this great achievement that we did? Is this in fact my fault? I mean, it's not necessarily his fault exactly, or specifically, but just like, me as a member of humanity, is this my fault? And then in the second film, we get the like the end of the film where he has to make a choice. Like, do I save the girl that I kind of like, who said she would follow me anywhere I go, or do I destroy Godzilla but destroy all my friends and loved ones in the process?
Yeah.
So yeah. Wild stuff, but I like where he's at, though. Did you have any other characters that stood out?
I kind of made a conscious choice when I started these. I could kind of tell from the beginning what kind of story we were going into. Like, there's going to be a lot of cores of, like, soldiers and scientists and fairly, like, stock archetypical characters. So I'm like, sure, I'm not paying a lot of attention to characters on this round. Like, I made that conscious choice. Like, just let that flow over you. Just focus more on, like, the kind of the visuals of what they're doing, and, like, the structure and the aesthetics and the theme and the atmosphere and tone and things like that. I was like, I don't have the energy in me this week to remember anybody's names.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'm just naturally bad at names, so I never remember them anyways.
If I put my mind to it, I can do it, but I decided just to not put my mind to it this week.
Yeah,
but I think
you make a good point, though. This is more of an action film where it's like, hey, let's come up with a plan to defeat this giant monster, and let's enact the plan. Let's make it work. So if the characters were not the things you were paying attention to, what stood out to you? What is something that you're like, man, I gotta talk about this?
I was thinking more about just humanity as a whole's relationship with Godzilla, because one thing that has really stuck with me from that 90s American Godzilla is just how it's so much about regular people on the street and how they have to deal with this problem. And there's a scene where, like, one of the main characters needs to go to, like, his girlfriend's house and, like, talk to her or get something from her. And her house is, like, their apartment, I guess. They're in, like, downtown New York City. Her apartment is just crammed with people, and he's like, what are all these people doing here? And she's like, well, their homes got destroyed. What are they supposed to do, be out on the street in the middle of all this? And it's just everybody's, like, crowded around a TV, and it's got this almost, like, party atmosphere, like, which I imagine it would. Like, that's such a crazy thing to have happened. Like, you can sob or you can laugh. Like, we're getting attacked by a giant dinosaur. I made dip. Like, they're just all crowded around the TV, like, watching the news and eating a bunch of snacks.
The 3-bean dip.
Yeah, and, like, they've got a snack spread like it's the Super Bowl or something, and there's, like, kids running around and, like, playing games, and it's this little, like, chaotic pocket in the middle of this, like, destroyed town, but it's kind of a warm, chaotic pocket. And, like, that like scenario has stuck with me.
Hey, we have those too! They're by the microwave!
Yeah, like, and I wanted more of that. One thing I really missed from this movie was, like, civilians and, like, a city getting destroyed. Like, except for very briefly at the beginning where they're setting up the story for the whole thing. Like, when they're mostly dealing with Godzilla, there's practically no buildings, and there's not really any civilians. And I want him to just, like, knock a skyscraper over and almost hit a bus. I want that, like, normal person dealing with a crazy problem and just the very practical things of, okay, where do I even go? Where am I physically supposed to be at when this thing could be anywhere around me?
Yeah.
Like, how do you immediately survive? Not like in the long term, you know, where will we grow crops and will we have enough medicine for everybody? But more like, hey, can I get under a roof that's not going to collapse?
Yeah. Is this based off of a manga or anything?
I don't know. I didn't really look into the past of it.
I'm looking on Wikipedia. It's the first blah blah blah. The film was released. No, I don't think so. I think this is an original thing. I'm wondering that because it kind of to me felt like it was based off of a manga, or they had some idea for like a bigger story with more detail about the characters and stuff like that. Like, it felt like this was kind of a truncated version of whatever the story was that they were trying to tell. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. But I'm more so wondering if there was things that got cut out that we didn't get to see, but apparently not. So that being said, I kind of want to, like, I think I kind of would have liked to see a B plot where it's people still on Earth after the majority of them have left our space, and these are the ones that need to survive on Earth, because we know from the end of the first movie to the second film, there are humans still on Earth, or humanoid things. So what are their story? They've been here for 20,000 years.
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? You know, I don't necessarily need to know their story, but if you go back to when everything first happened, and everyone just left, you can still keep that that kind of surprise that when they get back to Earth 20,000 years after this, there's still people there, right? So if you have like some kind of side plot like of, you know, just of someone trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic now Godzilla ruled Earth, I think that would be really interesting. And that would be that, hey, here I am, a normal person trying to survive in this thing. And
I don't know if I can think of another story that's quite like that is post-apocalyptic where the apocalypse is a kaiju. Like, there's
what's the J.J. Abrams thing that he's now
Cloverfield?
Doing? Yeah,
that's
I guess kind of it. I mean, it has a mix of genres and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've only seen the first Cloverfield, the original one, but I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about Pacific Rim, and that's more like mid-apocalypse, like just on the verge of things are becoming an apocalypse. They canceled the apocalypse, as Idris Elba says, so that's no longer a problem for them. But, like, I've never seen any, like, it's always after nuclear war, after zombies. I've never seen after really big dinosaur. And I'm interested in how... I'm not a fan of dystopias, but I'm curious how that dystopia would be different than other dystopias.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing to explore. I wonder if Jurassic Park will ever go down that road instead of just like, hey, there's a bigger dinosaur. Now we have to find a bigger park to put that one in, you know? Because that's totally the plot of Jurassic World and stuff like that. I know.
Yeah. One thing I did really like about, I think my favorite story turn in this series of movies when they first get back to Earth and they see that Godzilla is still there, but it's so long, they don't know. Like, they know it is a Godzilla, but they don't know if that's the Godzilla, their
that was
Godzilla.
a good one.
They're like, is this a descendant of Godzilla, or has Godzilla, like, lived this long for 20,000 solid years, or has Godzilla gone into hibernation for centuries at a time, and he just comes out every once in a while, and we've got him during one of the awake periods? I like how they don't know what they're fighting. Like, they know enough. They're like, okay, we've seen this type of a creature before, we know how to fight it, but they don't know its origin. They don't know if they've seen it before.
They're kind of leaning on the side, though, that is the same one that destroyed Earth, and they're like, it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, you know. But yeah, the twist at the end of that first film is then that's a small one. Like, you guys basically just wiped out half of your military destroying that one, and that's a baby Godzilla, you know.
Yeah.
There's one that's like 3 times the size.
Yeah, the size of Mount Fuji or whatever. And I wish I know it's like 20,000 years in the future and like Earth has morphed so much, but I kind of wish we knew like geographically where we were throughout most of the story. Like, is this what Japan has become? Like, what landform are we on?
I think they mention it kind of briefly, but you have to put some puzzle pieces together to kind of figure it out. So yeah, it's one of those ones, like, I'm not really sure exactly where they are. Because, I mean, you see pictures of Godzilla in Japan and in Paris and in stuff like that. So he knows how to get around. He has some frequent flyer miles built up or something.
Yeah. It just made me wonder, like, with the last Godzilla we see, the massive Godzilla, I stretch my whole arms out as wide as they can be, and he's wider than that. With the biggest Godzilla, like, is he so big that if you go to the other end of the Earth, is it like, well, he'll walk here in 3 months and then we'll be in trouble? Like, how do you, is he so big that you can no longer share anywhere on the planet with him? Like, is there anywhere you can go and, like, be safe from Godzilla? Or is it like, okay, as long as he's on Earth, like, nobody can do anything?
What's that song? I think it was a song we learned in church when I was a kid.
He's got the whole world in his hands?
Not that one. Now you just made me think of, what was it, Rocket Man?
Rocket Man.
He's got the whole world in German, everybody. There was some song, it might not be a church song, maybe it is, but it's kind of the same tune, I think, as that. It's like, so high, can't get over it, so low, can't get under it, so wide, can't get around it, gotta go through that door. We called it Building Up the Kingdom. There we go. And it was like, building up the kingdom, building up the kingdom, building up the kingdom of the Lord. But it, like, you would repeat the song, and it would get, like, each verse you would get faster and faster. But you just reminded me of that, where it's like, he's so tall, you can't go over him. He's so wide, you can't go around him. You know,
like Godzilla.
Weird tangent. Sorry about that.
No, that connects to what they're talking about. Where Godzilla is so big, he is God, like, God's in his name.
Yeah,
that's part 1.
Yeah.
I also liked how.
Go ahead.
No, I also liked how the way they told this story where humanity has to flee Earth and, like, be up in space for 20 years to be like, maybe he'll die off by the time we get back. And then they go back and, like, Godzilla is the scourge and the bane of, like, an entire culture and an entire generation. Like, it's not like, you know, oh, Godzilla came and attacked the city and, like, wrecked everything and we had to rebuild it and things were really bad for, like, 2 years. Like, no, this has ruined your entire future, your entire culture. And I wondered if maybe this story was a more original sci-fi story with just any kind of a monster put in there. They're like, oh, you know, it's this huge monster that just sort of affects the entire culture, and somebody in the writer's room's like, let's call him Godzilla for right now. Kind of a Godzilla-type monster. Because, like, Godzilla has that effect on actual humans. Like, he is the king of monsters for us, too, as well, even though he's not physically here fighting us. And I wonder if they just kept going with it, and they're like, well, why can't we just make it Godzilla? Like, can we ask Toho? Can we ask the Godzilla people? Can we make this a Godzilla story? Because we've just been using Godzilla as, like, our own personal cultural shorthand for the kind of effect we want this monster to have.
Done something like that before.
Yeah.
I a long time ago, I was trying to develop a comic book with a friend of mine who for a long time actually wanted to be a comic book writer. So he was making pitches, he was writing stories all the time, and we were coming up with one that kind of had to do with dreams and nightmares, and the idea that in classical art, nightmares are actually represented by, like, physical, like, demons on your chest. And they say that the, like, constricting feeling that you get when you're in a nightmare is them on your chest. And there's a really famous painting of it. It's called Nightmare. I forget who it's by, but it is this woman with this, like, demon thing on her chest. And in the background there's a horse head that has, like, popped in its face in, like, from behind.
Oh, yeah, I just googled nightmare painting. I found what you're talking about. Okay.
And so we were kind of playing on some of that stuff and how that these nightmare creatures actually have, like, horse-like faces and stuff like that. That's why they're called nightmares and stuff like that. And there's a whole bunch of stuff actually about why it's actually called nightmare, and it does stem from, like, the etymology of that does somehow go back to horses and stuff like that. Strange stuff. But we didn't know what to call our dream world, and so we kept calling it Narnia, because it was like, and then they go into this dream world thing that's kind of like Narnia, and, you know, so yeah, I can kind of see them doing something like that with Godzilla, where it's just like, we have this giant monster that's destroyed Earth. We don't know what it looks like or what to call it yet, but it's kind of like Godzilla, right? And that's just what they went with, and it's like, okay, deadline is tomorrow. Shit, it's Godzilla. You know, so who knows? Who knows if that's what happened? I mean, were you kind of thinking it's more of an afterthought? Like, we kind of mentioned it. It didn't necessarily need to be Godzilla.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe they were like, okay, let's do something so new with Godzilla. We're playing with none of the usual Godzilla tropes, and it's gonna feel fresh and shiny and brand new. Or if it was a more traditional, just original sci-fi story, and they're like, well, why not Godzilla? I feel like it had things missing, but again, Godzilla's history is so big, I could just go find that thing in another place. So I kind of appreciated, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. That's okay.
Here's another theory. And again, we could be wildly off with all of these. We're just speculating. What if, it was more of an original thing, and as they were kind of testing it out and testing the story, like, people were just like, well, why don't you just make it Godzilla? It's already like a big giant, like, why make up something new when you have it right there, you know?
Yeah.
Could be the opposite thing, where they were like, we want it to be original, but everyone else kept thinking it's Godzilla, so might as well just give the people what they want.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Do you want to talk about the art?
Yes.
Because I really liked the visuals for this series. The CGI thing is a little strange, but I got used to it pretty quickly. And I think the art suited the story they were telling really well, because it's so colorful and bright. Not in, like, a weird way, just in, like, oh, we're surrounded by, like, computers and things, and, like, there's a bright red readout, and there's a bright orange and a blue. Like, everything is just very brightly color-coded in their technology stations, and everything's got that, like, neon glow to it. And for a story that is as grim as this is, the visuals, like, really keep it from feeling like a bummer or anything. Like, the visuals kind of help keep things light, and I think that was a really nice choice.
Yeah. I think with the computer animation, I think it really lends itself to the sci-fi technology stuff. Again, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, or a sci-fi fan, I should say. I'm not super educated in all of that stuff, but it's one of those things where it's like, I can't wait to live in the future where that stuff is a reality, and that's what screens look like and all that stuff. On the other hand, as a graphic designer, I'm like, this is a nightmare. This is a fucking nightmare. I can't understand any of this. Like, there's the scene when they reach Mecha Godzilla City, which is fantastic that they have a whole city that is basically Mecha Godzilla. But when they reach that city and they come up with a plan, and he's like, okay, here's the plan, and, like, the screens behind him pop up, it's like, that's your PowerPoint? You expect anyone to know how to decipher that? Like, there's no way. There's no way that they know that and can understand that. On, like, okay, phase 1 of the plan, we do this, it's like, which chart are you pointing to? It's constantly moving, and
everything looks the same.
And everything, it all just blends in together. It looks neat. It looks like a cool plan, but I don't know if it actually is a plan. But yeah, like, it looks visually stunning. You said this was a little bit of a strange thing to kind of get used to, but you did. Talk to me more about that. What were you expecting the style to be?
I don't know. I think when you told me it was 3D, I was thinking more like, I don't know, Green Lantern, the animated series. I'll throw that out as an example of, like, the kind of 3D.
By the way, is a very underrated show.
Yeah.
I'm so mad that it's not around anymore.
And what this style actually reminded me of is, I don't know if you ever saw this, but there is a Tron Uprising cartoon on Disney XD a couple years ago. Yeah. It kind of reminded me of that, especially with, like, how many neon lights we're working with here. Yeah, everything's just sort of, like, it would look fine and still, and then, like, somebody would move, and I don't know, it's just that overly, like, smooth 3D motion that looks like, I don't know, too smooth. But like I said, it was a little odd to begin with, but I got really used to it.
What's the specs on your TV? Do you have a 1080 TV, or are you watching on your laptop, or...
I
something?
watched it on my TV. It says 1080. This thing is like
Okay, then yeah.
6 years old now.
That's fine. So you were probably watching on a TV very similar to mine. I didn't actually think it's all that fluid. There's certain things that are, but I think, the big thing nowadays is 4K, and it's 60 frames per second. I don't think it was at 60 frames. It felt a little bit choppy to me.
I think when I say fluid, it's like your features are just floating around on like the sea of your face shape.
Interesting.
Like it felt less anchored. I don't know.
Yeah, because it does the thing where it's trying to mix the 3D with the line style of animation of
that's it. Yeah,
2D anime, and so it's kind of a weird mix. I watched Knights of Sidonia, which I mentioned at the start of the show, which Polygon Pictures, I believe, is their name, is the studio that does that type of animation for Netflix. And yeah, it was a thing where like I watched the first episode and I was like, oh god, I don't like this at all. And then it was just like a couple months after that I was like, you know what, I'll give it a second shot, and I did, and I ended up really liking that show. But the animation, it's one of those things, it's not that I liked it, I got used to it.
Yeah.
And then when we watched Ajin, it was more of like, okay, I remember this from Knights of Sidonia. I got used to it a lot faster. I'm still not 100% sold. However, in that, I think they had upped their game just a little bit. Because there's moments in that and in Godzilla, where it works perfectly. And the lighting looks fantastic, and it looks like it just looks so good. But then there's weird moments where it focuses on like a character's face, and it's not working right. I mean, is that kind of how you felt? Like it had its moments where it looked really nice, and then it had some where it's just like, okay.
Like I loved every setting and every environment in the show. But yeah, I think like there was some sort of lack of depth to the face. Like there'll be a real close up on Haruo, and it's just like a shape with features stuck to it. I don't know, which isn't like I said, it was just a little odd at first, and it worked. I think it worked ultimately.
Yeah, I mean it worked, and I think with Godzilla kind of being as big as he is, like and with as much detail too, like I think that's the thing that it really needed some kind of 3D, not 2D animation, because I think the scale really works of just like he seems huge. Like he and like the detail on his skin, it seems textured in the right way. It looks fantastic, and I think it really helped to the like scale of destruction too. Like you mentioned, you would have liked to see him destroy more skyscrapers and stuff, and see that from the perspective of like the everyman. But I think just looking at how big he is and what he's doing, like he's much bigger than these buildings. Like these buildings are tiny compared to him. So when he swings his tail and all we get is this shock wave that kind of like goes over the surface of the earth, it's because the destruction is so big that we're not getting these small pebbles of skyscrapers. Like he's actually destroying the Earth. Which like that's one of the things at the end of the first one. I was like, wow, I like the destruction in this. Like it makes me think like this is epic. This is on scale to what I expect. And then they're like, and that's a baby Godzilla. Bum, 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 there's a bigger one. No. And yeah, I don't know. That was something that I liked, and I think the animation worked really well for that. So
yeah, Godzilla looked good.
Yes, he did. He looked good. Anything else you want to talk about? Stuff that's on your mind. I have one thing.
Yeah.
That I kind of want to briefly mention. What did you think of the soundtrack? The music in the background, was that something you noticed? Really?
No, I don't know if I noticed it at all. I usually don't notice soundtracks. I'm not a very musically inclined person. I very rarely like reach out, like something very rarely hits me where I pick up on it and I notice it. Sure. Yeah, I don't. Was there one? What did it sound like?
That makes sense. Yes, there was a soundtrack from time to time. Usually more at the epic moments is when I noticed it. But it was strange because it was also one of those things is like, that's not what I expect. I was expecting something a little more sci-fi, something a little more modern, something I guess just more like techno electronic type of stuff, especially with all the technology and sci-fi aspects they have in this show. The soundtrack ended up reminding me more of like classic monster movies, more like trumpets and big brass sections and stuff like that. It did kind of remind me of like what I would expect from old Godzilla films, old monster films. So I really liked that. I was like, this is actually really cool. I like it.
Nice.
So yeah, kudos to them whoever worked on the soundtrack for these films. I liked it a lot. So, last words, final thoughts.
I liked it. It's very different than a normal Godzilla story, so if you're very ingrained in kaiju and you want to see something different, this is a great option. I don't know if you are new to Godzilla, if this is the best thing to start with, but it's cool. It's just a sci-fi story, and it looks great. Like, if you just want a neat thing to put on at a party, this is probably a very good option.
Yeah, it's a good, like, background. Like, hey, we're having a Halloween party or a kaiju party or something. You can put this on in the background. And it works good. I loved the sci-fi aspects of this. As much as I liked it being Godzilla, I don't think it necessarily needed to be.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a downside, maybe. Depends on how you look at it. It looks like there is going to be a third movie, and it looks like they are going to be introducing some other kaiju finally.
Like Mothra or...
Did you watch the end credits scene?
Oh, was there a post credits? Did it marvel us?
At your TV.
But I know I looked over. It's off. There's nothing there.
Is it on the TV now?
It snuck up on me.
So both of these films had a post credits scene. The end of the first one was the main character waking up in the hut of this Earth creature, humanoid thing. We don't really know who they are, what they are, but she had the mask on, and it was him just being like, "What? Where am I?" And then there, it's this woman in this mask, and so that was it. It was like, oh, there's people still on Earth. What in the world is happening? And then the second one does kind of it reuses some sequences you already saw and does kind of a flashback thing. It gives you a little bit more context to that coin that the religious people had. There was a coin with it was like a weird kind of not a star, but a shape with a lot of points on it. Had a tiny bit more context with that. And then that scene where again, I forget his name. Let me open up Wikipedia if I still have it here. It was on there. Metphies, I believe is his name. He was the religious alien, the main one. And it's the scene where he whispers something to Haru, and you don't hear what it was. I totally called it too. I was like, I bet I know what it is.
What is it?
And so he mentioned it at the end of the scene. You get that scene once more, and you get to hear what he says. He's like, there's something out in space that makes Godzilla look like chump change. And so I think that's what the third movie is gonna be. They're gonna go summon this monster from out in space and have it come down and fight Godzilla. And that's King Ghidorah.
I don't know if I know that one.
I have a weird relationship with the name King Ghidorah. The only reason I know it is because one of my favorite rappers does he has like I wouldn't necessarily describe it as multiple personalities, but for the sake of like his whole stick, he has multiple personalities, and he's released albums under each of them, and so MF Doom, if you've heard of him, he also goes by the name Victor Vaughn, and he also has released an album under King Ghidorah.
How do I spell this? Because I'm trying to Google it, and it's not giving me anything that looks like what it's supposed to be.
For King Ghidorah?
Yeah.
I think they pronounce it, let me see here. I think they spell it Ghidorah? So they spell it weird. King Ghidorah is spelled Ghidorah.
Ghidorah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Hi. He's a big dragon. He's got 3 heads.
And then MF Doom, the rapper that I was talking about, he spells it Geedorah.
Okay.
So he spells it a little bit differently. But he's the reason that I kind of know the name.
Yeah.
And then from listening to other podcasts and stuff that have covered Godzilla stuff, I know that he comes from space. King Ghidorah comes from space. So when they were like, there's this thing out in space that like we should fear more than Godzilla, I was like, I bet it's King Ghidorah. And then at the end he was like, it's Ghidorah, and I was like, yes, I knew it.
Yeah, very
so that
scary.
is something to look forward to whenever Netflix releases the third film in this series. Yeah. I think that's it, though. I think that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sequels. Godzilla, blah, blah, blah. The second film in the trilogy, blah, blah, blah. The third and final film in the trilogy, entitled Godzilla, the Planet Eater, is scheduled to be released November 9th, 2018. So not too far off.
Okay.
And the third film will be released, and you guys can watch them all back to back to back. There you go.
That's a cool weekend.
That's that. That was Godzilla 1 and 2. The subtitles were Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters, and Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle. There you go.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So yeah, let's move on to pitches for this next week.
Yes.
Melissa, it's your first time back in like 2 weeks, and you are about to pitch some stuff to me so we can figure out what we'll do for this next week.
Okay. So this week's pitches, and my pitches for the next 3 times I'm going to pitch after this, are all going to be leading us up to Halloween.
Oh, yes. That's right.
Get ready to get spooked, Kyle.
When is our next episode coming out? Do I have a calendar that I can pull up?
This is for recording on the 16th.
Calendar. Google. Where's Google Calendar? Do I have a Google Calendar? Not. Okay. Google dot calendar. I can't just like easily type it in. It's so stupid. Google Calendar. There we go. Oh, where is my Google Calendar? Because last year we did like Halloween month, and all of our episodes in October were Halloween themed. Whoa, where am I? No. Go to today. September 9th. This episode is coming out on the 15th. Okay. I gotcha. I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing here. Cool. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yep. So I am starting off with young adult, family-friendly spooks.
Sounds good.
We're going to ease into this. So, submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, pitch number 1 is the movie Paranorman. This is a movie from 2012. This is a stop-motion animated film from Studio Laika. This was their follow-up to Coraline. Yeah. And this is, I believe, an original story. And it's about a little boy named Norman who has this sort of family curse / gift that he can talk to ghosts. And he lives in this like New England town, and there's an uprising of like all these old pilgrims and settlers, and he has to deal with how to quiet them and how to calm them. And it's a very emotional movie. Like, it's not like where you have to battle these ghosts. It's like, why are these ghosts upset? And so it looks great. It's spooky. The characters are really fun, and it's got a really great, sweet heart to it.
I remember when it came out, and I don't necessarily mix them up, but didn't it come out at the same time as Frankenweenie? Around that same time?
Oh, I don't know. Frankenweenie might have been
I could be wrong, but
I think those things probably were in like the same like 2 or 3 year period within each other. Yeah, maybe.
Those two are kind of in my mind of like they happened around the same time. Cool. Cool. Paranorman.
Yep,
what's pitch number 2?
Pitch number 2 is a TV series called Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
There you go.
This ran on Cartoon Network from 2010 to 2013. Season 1 is 26 half-hour episodes.
Okay.
And this is a kind of reboot of Scooby-Doo where all the kids, they're still kids, they're all still teens, they all look the same, there's no like character redesigns or anything. They put, Velma has barrettes in her hair, that's it.
How dare
and they're
they?
all...
Hashtag not my Velma.
And they're not, like, traveling around in the van. I mean, they've got the van, of course, but they're just going around town. They're in one town. They're in this spooky little place called Crystal Cove. And it's a lot about, like, the town mythology and the town lore, and how a lot of the authority figures around the town aren't really being honest with the kids. And it's got more of a vibe of, like, maybe like a Buffy or even like a Riverdale, but it's not like gritty. It's just...
Is it still each like a new mystery every episode, or is it kind of an overarching thing?
It's it's Monster of the Week with this sort of looming mythology kind of hanging over everything.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
And so it's a little bit more mature. It's got more emotion to it. It's got a much deeper mythology. It's a lot creepier than any other Scooby-Doo you've seen, but it's not like a dark, gritty reboot sort of thing. And it looks great.
Okay.
I think it's got really nice animation.
Did you ever watch a pup named Scooby-Doo when you were a kid?
Yeah.
I fucking loved that show. It was great.
This is the opposite of that. There's no red herring to be found.
So what was this one called again? Scooby-Doo
this is called
Mystery Incorporated?
Yep, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
Okay. Pitch number 3.
Pitch number 3 is something I don't know anything about. This is another Netflix original. This is an animated series called The Hollow. I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but Netflix keeps suggesting it to me, and I'm curious about it. It is new this year. It's 10 episodes, about half hour each, another animated thing. So these are 3 animated young adult spooky adventures. And it is billed as 3 teens join forces to find a way home after waking up in a strange realm filled with magic portals, perplexing puzzles, and vicious beasts. So I watched the little trailer that Netflix will play with you, and it's got kind of a sci-fi aspect to it where it looks like they're, jumping from set piece to set piece. Maybe like they're dimension hopping, trying to find their way home, figuring out why they were taken away, why the 3 of them are together, where they are, and what their path back home is. That kind of seems like what it is. And like, I think the splash image, like the little thumbnail for the series, are the 3 of them in like a spooky woods. One of the foes they have to fight, they're in like a zombie world at one point. So this seemed kind of Halloween-y. So that's why I threw it in there as pitch number 3.
Interesting. Okay. So we have Paranorman, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, and The Hollow.
Yeah.
That sounds good. We just did a Netflix original, so I think I'm gonna pass on The Hollow. Though that does look pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's either Scooby-Doo or Paranormal. I kind of want to watch Scooby-Doo because I haven't watched Scooby-Doo in forever, and I'm interested to see what they did with it.
Kyle, you're in for a treat. This is... I have seen all of this show, and I love it. I didn't want to throw that out to you at the beginning of the pitch, but this is sincerely one of my favorite animated shows of, like, the last couple years. It's so great.
That's funny. So you mentioned it's a little bit creepier, but it's not the dark, gritty reboot.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a comic book, and I don't know how good it is, but it's called Scooby Apocalypse. Yes.
I have read the first couple of those. I think I bought like the first 8, and I've been wanting to pitch it to you.
It's the funniest thing in the world.
But I don't know like what a good cutout point is. Like I don't know like how many issues we're supposed to read, and I couldn't find a lot of info on it. I think I'll try again soon and see if there's been like a trade paperback released or something. But yes, I have read a couple issues of that thing. It's also great.
I think it's the most ridiculous, like, let's do a dark and gritty reboot of Scooby-Doo.
It works for me because I love Scooby-Doo variants. I love it, like the way there's people out there that'll like, yeah, I'll watch any variant of Alice in Wonderland, any variant of Wizard of Oz. Scooby-Doo is that thing for me.
What's your take on Scrappy? Scrappy-Doo. Where does he fall in the Scooby-Doo top 50 timeline thing list.
I like that he existed so that the first live-action movie could make him the surprise villain. That's worth it for me. What that
totally
movie did isn't fantastic.
That's so funny. Okay. There we go. I remember Scrappy-Doo. I never really liked him. It was always one of the ones like, okay, if that's the only Scooby-Doo that's on, I'll watch that when I'm homesick from school, you know? But I'd much rather watch a pup named Scooby-Doo and the original Scooby-Doo. But who knows? Sounds good. So for next week, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. You said it's half-hour long episodes and there's 26 of them?
Yeah, that's season 1. And then season 2, it was only a 2-season show. It was designed to be that much. They didn't, cut it off in the middle of a mystery. It's an entire self-contained thing of,
We'll never know who that pesky dog was.
Yeah. It's 2 26-episode seasons. We're just watching the first one.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good to me. I'm excited. So go watch that at home, wherever you can. Follow along. And we will be back next week talking about that. You guys can join us live here on Twitch at twitch.tv/thewhatnauts, or you can go to our website at thewhatnauts.com/livestreams, and you can catch us next Sunday at noon Eastern time, live streaming that. If you cannot make the live streams, that is a-okay. We put this up on YouTube and as a podcast the following week. And all of our RSS feeds are already fixed. I mentioned that, so go subscribe to the review show, go subscribe to the Captain's Log, and go subscribe to the Reactor Core, which we need to do an episode of the Reactor Core soon. It's been a while since we've done that. We'll have to find something that a couple of us might have seen. Actually, I wonder where Belinda is in Spider-Man.
Ooh, yeah, you guys could do Spider-Man.
Yeah, maybe Jams can join us on that as well.
I'll let him know, yeah.
Yeah, so go subscribe to all of those, or just the ones you want to. And if you like this show or any of the other shows that we do, you can find us on patreon.com/thewhatnauts, and you can give us all of your life savings, because we would greatly appreciate that. It will keep the lights on, keep the mics on, we can keep making this show, and hopefully expand and make more shows, make better shows, get better equipment and stuff like that. And that would be fantastic. You can join for as little as $1, and you can get some pretty cool perks, like early episodes. That's always fun. Good fun. But yeah, that is it. Melissa, where can the people find you on the World Wide Web?
You can find me on Twitter at Wilkywit, WILKYWIT.
You've got that nailed now. You've been doing
I've
it
had
from
practice.
week to week. Yeah.
I'm glad I could still do it after not doing it for 2 weeks.
Yes, exactly. I am online on Twitter at Hush315, and you can find updates for all of our shows at The Whatnauts on Twitter as well. Go check out our website, too. We have a really nifty website where we post all of our episodes. There's articles and reviews and stuff like that. I normally do a month in review thing, and I did not do one for this last month, so I'm slacking on that. I might get it up late, or I might just do double duty at the end of this month. But yeah, we are expanding our website as well, so go check it out, thewhatnauts.com. And that is it. This has been the Review Show, episode 24. We will see you guys next week. Adios.
Bye.